modern big record.
Yeah. I thought it should have been the first single. I thought very few bands in the world could release a song like that as their first single and get it played on the radio. And I thought they could. And to me, it would have been a very strong statement which says, we're going somewhere different. Come along with us. Because the record is really somewhere different. To me, it's really a departure for them. There's a whole group of songs there which are very, very original musically. They're very strong, and whilst nobody else could have done them, I think, they don't sound like U2 either. They don't sound like traditional U2. But if you listen to them, you think, well, who else could it be? So Moment of Surrender is symptomatic of that group and probably my favourite song on the record. And I think part of the reason it's a favourite is because it was the most magical experience I've ever had in a studio, in that the piece came together incredibly quickly and was only ever played once, which is the version that is on the record. We never played it again. It was... I can remember very clearly how it started. I was working on a funny rhythm loop, because I often had a loop ready for the band when they walked into the studio, just so there's something to jump onto, something to get excited about, rather than nothing. So I was working on this loop, and I hadn't fixed it up right. There was this background to it, which was sound, like a held chord. I don't even know how I made that sound now. I can't remember. And in the front there was this like a wheeled carriage that had one of the wheels a bit cracked or something like that. So there was or like the way a camel moves or something, that uneven. And I was trying to straighten it out because it was a bit weird. And I thought, I must have one of the beats in the wrong place. And I was still trying to fix it up when Larry came in and just started playing along with it, this fabulous beat. I mean, really the kind of thing that only Larry can come up with. Totally direct, and he nailed this thing straight away. He started playing, then Edge joined in, and suddenly this piece was starting to exist. So we very quickly had a discussion, which chords, are we going to have changes? I said, let's make it a funny layout. Let's not make it based on 8s or 16s, which is what most music structurally is. And so we decided to add a bit to the end of each verse. So it had an unevenness to the structure as well, which I thought was like the macrocosm of the microcosm of this funny rhythm. So we made those decisions. I don't think we played it through at all whilst doing that. And then we just started playing it. And this piece just started to grow and grow and grow and grow. And it was the most extraordinary feeling. This thing, as people felt their way into it, their confidence grew in what they were playing, and it became like a bigger and bigger feeling. And that contour of the way the piece came into being is in the piece. So you have the history of the piece in the music. And of course, it sounded like this amazing crescendo, emotional crescendo, which it was. It was us finding out where we were and being able to expand what we were doing within it. And of course, when Bono came in singing, as so often when Bono comes in singing, it was like a knife to the heart. It was so amazing, this voice that came out of him. There was a very strong feature of this album that Bono sort of stopped playing himself in a lot of the songs. So it was as if he regarded each song as a sort of little piece of theatre. And he was the character on stage in this theatre. And he was a different character in many of these songs. We had one person who he would become occasionally called Big Jim Burley. And this was that voice. Hey, this big guy, confident, big Irishman. And then there were other voices which were much more vulnerable, and then another one which was more robotic, a sort of person as though he was being remotely controlled by somebody else with a little box somewhere, But they were sort of roles in a way that I don't think he's ever done before. And the person who appeared in this moment of surrender was so heartbreakingly agonized and vulnerable. It was just so emotional, hearing this voice, So we're all playing and completely in the spell of this piece of music. I never played like that in my life, I'm a terrible keyboard player, but when I listen to that, I think, God, was that me? I'm really proud of it. There's not a single thing was changed. That's exactly what I played. And I listen to it and think, wow, the shape of that performance is amazing. The way it steps up there, the way it opens out there, the way it closes back down there. How did I know to do all that without any prior agreement? And in fact, the dynamics of the whole thing were extraordinary. People seemed to sense, okay, reach a crescendo here, drop down here. There was nobody really conducting, except, of course, the voice was leading. So the voice would reach a climax, and you'd think, okay, he has to drop. He's going to drop. I know he'll drop. And sure enough, everything dropped, including the voice. So when that piece ended, I remember we played it for a bit longer than it is on the record. I think we may have chopped out one verse, or perhaps two, but I think just one in the end. So it was a little bit longer, but it finished, and there were a lot of people in the room because there were, I think, 7 of us playing, plus there was engineer, assistant, a lot of, there were some visitors there, I think. There were the various people who look after the guitars and the recording and so on and so on. And it finished, and there was just complete silence. Nobody said a thing, because it was so, dear, where have we just been, It was really like one had been on an emotional adventure of some kind. And I remember Bono said, I usually think we go into the studio to find music. He said, I felt this time it found us. And it really was like that. Do you know this thing they talk about, channeling, which people from California seem to do a lot of? Well, that's actually what it felt like. It didn't feel like me sitting there playing, making decisions. I wasn't making any decisions, really. There was just this thing unfolding, and my fingers happened to be part of it. It seemed to be separate from my will somehow.
Well, you see,